there is what people don't really understand. And there is this idea that, the fear is progressives will lose races for the Democrats, and that's the justification. No, the truth of the matter is we are non-corporate and everyone else is corporate. And it's no different than if you're on the police force and you're a straight shooter and you have a corrupt department. The department isn't going to think you're a good person because you're not corrupt. They're going to not like you because you're not on the take like they are. There is this resentment of, oh, you think you're a pure person? Why? Because you don't take corporate money? You think you're better than we are? Well, let me assure you that the Democratic establishment hates progressives more than they hate the GOP. And if you need any proof of that, just look at a state like Kansas, which used to be as reliably Democrat when the party was the party of labor. But once the Reagan Revolution came about, it's been that way ever since. And the trajectory has been that way ever since. But now we have to deal with this other ridiculous issue, which again is just a distraction, as we know. And so ultimately what ends up happening is you get these circumstances where we elect representatives who simply because of the boxes they check and not the policies that they espouse are getting elected into office. And that, of course, leads us to Sharice Davids. Now, the problem here is that this is the type of message that was going out. Why was it okay for AOC and Bernie to campaign for Sharice Davids' anti-choice opponent, but not for Dem leadership to support an incumbent in a socially conservative Democratic? I love how people who clearly probably live on the coastlines like to comment on the heartland, like they know exactly how people that live there think. You can try to make it make sense, but you won't. I'm so effing tired of the hypocrisy. Well, Brent, the floor is yours. Please tell us about the wonderful hypocrisy of the Democratic establishment regarding this issue.
Well, and this wasn't just something that just came up recently. I mean, this particular tweet was one among a line of hundreds, if not thousands. I mean, it's easy to find it on Twitter of this smear campaign that they're doing against me, against AOC, against Bernie. And they've decided that they're going to start claiming that I'm anti-choice when I've been pro-choice my entire life. I ran as a strong pro-choice candidate. You'll never find anything I've ever said otherwise. And frankly, ran more strongly progressive and pro-choice than any other candidate, in any of the race that I ran against or in any other race that I've been involved in as a volunteer or anything like that. But the truth doesn't necessarily matter when they have an agenda, and they think this is a great way to smear progressive candidates, to smear Bernie, to smear AOC. The Democratic establishment did not. They were really afraid when they saw my campaign catching on in Kansas, right? It was a congressional district in Kansas. AOC and Bernie were out here. We were talking about, taking a message to Washington and to the people that, is something that plays well in New York City and in Kansas, right? And where we have common goals, common beliefs, where we're fighting for common people with everyday problems. And that was very, very scary to the establishment because it's very easy for them to say, oh, yes, there are some progressives, but you can only find them, on the coast or in these few districts, these few big cities and stuff like that. They didn't know what they were going to do if it came to Kansas. And ultimately what they did was, we had polling showing that I was ahead by, I think it was 15 points, going into the last few weeks of the primary. It was just a Democratic primary in a congressional district in Kansas, something that normally I don't think would garner a tremendous amount of attention from the Washington establishment. But what do you know? All of a sudden, the last 2 weeks of the election, $1 million of dark money goes in against me in the election, in favor of a corporate candidate who used to be a corporate lawyer while I was fighting for workers against the corporations. And all of a sudden, we ended up losing by a couple of points. But that wasn't enough, right? They have to try to take me down even further. They have to try to end me. They have to try to end any progressive that, would dare try to run on progressive values. And so there's this targeted, I guess, sophisticated to the extent that I don't know if it's bots or who's actually doing it, but it's a repeated smear campaign on Twitter of all kinds of different things. But this is one of the ones that just keeps getting repeated over and over again. And it's completely false.
Couldn't have said it better. One thing that I also remembered very well is that on the night of your election, you were leading consistently up until the point that the vote total was around 95%. And you were leading by, I think, like 6 points, if I remember correctly. And then lo and behold, a whole bunch of votes just managed to fall in the lap of your opponent, and she won by a couple of points. You see, when that type of thing happens, when you get somebody like it's totally rigged and everything is rigged, well, there's a reason why it lands when Trump says it, because they really think people are asleep. They really think that he's just this guy who's out there claiming that it's rigged, when in reality, he's just watching the way things unfold and he's using it to his advantage. He's a complete self-serving jackass, but that's neither here nor there. He's never going to succeed if he's not using something to his advantage, and would love for you to speak on that, because to me, there was something really wrong with the way that election unfolded that night.
Yeah, there were some serious questions about that, and I know there's an attorney and an investigative journalist. I believe her name is Jennifer Cohen, who actually came out here and investigated and found that some of the voting machines being used in our district are only used in a few, scattered, precise, key districts around the country that have had similar types of problems. But the big thing is this: it's not just the smears of progressive candidates, but let's take a look at what the establishment is actually doing. They're doing the very things that they're trying to smear us for, right? They make up a lie saying that I'm anti-choice and that candidates came and campaigned for me. Yet the actual leadership of the Democratic Party all went down to Texas to campaign for Henry Cuellar, who was actually a pro-life candidate, right? And just
anti-choice. Sorry.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, exactly. They haven't had to answer for that. They have no, why is that? Why is it a terrible thing when a progressive gets wrongfully accused of doing something that the establishment openly does, each and every campaign cycle?
For somebody who lives in the heartland, I would like for you to be very frank about the fact that there is a huge push with the Democratic corporate establishment to push an anti-white sentiment. And I'm wondering what type of an effect that has had on very white Kansas, which is extremely red, but doesn't necessarily need to be. This idea that electing a white man on its surface is a bad thing, to me, speaks volumes about the manipulation that exists within the corporate establishment, that it is all about maintaining this system that screws the overwhelming majority of us, rather than getting to the point where our focus is on the issues. If we were to get there, that's when significant change would happen. They will use any weapon at their disposal, and this is why I hate the culture war, because it's always used as a weapon to divide and conquer, as far as I can see.
The way I feel about this, and I think a lot of people feel this way, is, I think that diversity in politics and elected office is incredibly, incredibly important, right? I have a law firm here in Kansas City. We do trial law, and my wife is my law partner. She's a brilliant, amazing attorney. And, just having that small amount of diversity where you have two equal partners, one man, one woman, in a law firm, just brings so many great new ideas and perspectives to every case we do. And the same thing happens in government. The more diverse we have it, the better. And, my entire life, to the extent on a ballot, when I'm lucky enough to have, several good candidates running for various office, I always default to trying to add diversity, whether it's electing women, voting for people of color, whatever it may be. But the important part of that is that they have to at least be candidates that will stand for the right things and will stand up for regular people, and that will actually represent the diversity that we hope that they will, right? I mean, what we know is that women do the exact same work as men, and a lot of times better, and get paid less for it. We know that people of color do the same work and usually work harder than white people in the same job, and they get paid less for it. And we need champions to go into government at every level and fight like hell to make sure that those disparities go away. And yes, we need a diverse government for that. We do. But most importantly, we need to make sure that every single person we elect is someone that's actually going to go in and fight for those things.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.